With this one new feature added to the game, Street Fighter 6 is guaranteed to succeed. Or is it? We're going to be talking about all that and more, but first, coffee. Now, today's beans are a Columbia Supremo, or Supremo. Don't know what's so supreme about them, but we're going to find out in a moment. Anyway, the topic of today's discussion is Street Fighter 6. And as you know, over the past week, Capcom has been inundating us with information about their brand new game, which I believe is coming out at some point next year, so 2023. But I am crazy excited. I've just decided I want more coffee than that. That is not enough caffeination. We're all very excited because Street Fighter 6 has just unveiled the, more detailed trailers and also looks at the characters and also playtests. So we really already have a fairly good idea of what the game is going to look like and some inkling as to how it's going to play. But I think people aren't looking enough at the main feature, which is probably going to make Street Fighter 6 skyrocket in terms of personality, in terms of popularity. Let's grind! Real-time commentary. Now, I don't think that real-time commentary is going to make the game succeed for the reason that you might think. I don't think that esports style commentary is really going to skyrocket the game's popularity just by making the game more fun to play for casual players or anything. But I do think there is one thing that this tells us about Capcom's new strategy in terms of marketing this game, which is going to actually help bring new audiences into not just Street Fighter 6, but I think fighting games as well. Now, the reason I think this is because of something I've been doing personally, which is content creation for fighting games. Somehow, the games just don't really translate how fun they are to actually play them yourself. Going through the experience of learning how to play, getting better as a player, getting better as a fighter. It really just feels like getting better at martial arts in general, which is kind of what fighting games are based on. There was one video that I took note of. I don't know if it was a video, it might have been an article on Medium or something. I think in the article, it was kind of putting the idea out there that it was just inherently more difficult to make content for fighting games than it is for something like Smash Bros. And when you make content for things like Smash Bros, it's easier to make meme-style content. At the time, I was like, that can't be true. There just must be other ways to make fighting games that maybe we haven't explored yet. And actually, over the next few years after that article, you did see an explosion of other channels really experimenting with things that would work with fighting game content. For example, highlights from streams, making tier lists. But despite all the success that I think people have had with making content for fighting games, I do think that they are still kind of struggling. And that's why I think the real-time commentary feature is probably the most important addition to Street Fighter ever. But if you haven't actually seen the trailer, you might not even know what we're talking about. The real-time commentary feature is like watching an esports match, because real-life commentators watch the match and they tell you what's going on. If you don't actually know the fighting game that well, or maybe you think you know the fighting game quite well, the commentators tend to know it better, and they know that the spacing was just right for that move, or they know that in that situation that character only has this option or that option, and they chose that option instead, and that was the riskier option. A lot of that context is completely lost on the average viewer, and that's why commentary is so important. And by putting real-time commentary into the game, you kind of experience playing like an esports match. Like, I'm in the tournament and I can hear the commentator getting excited and I feel like I'm doing something important, even though I'm really just playing the game at an extremely low level. But the commentator is still speaking in the same professional way that they do in actual esports matches. But up until now, making a fighting game good or exciting or well-loved or popular, it hasn't actually been enough to make fighting games explode in popularity compared to other genres like, I don't know, survival horror or Monster Hunter sort of hunting games, or just any kind of game where the camera is behind your character and you're just running around in a 3D space. And so instead of allowing fate to decide whether the game was interesting enough or deep enough or just enjoyable enough and fun enough to play, that it naturally skyrockets itself to popularity, I think Capcom's strategy is a little bit more modern. I think they're going to make Street Fighter 6 succeed by going for social media. Alright, so making some pretty bold statements here about the real-time commentary feature in Street Fighter 6, but I really do believe that this is going to make a big difference, and I'll tell you why. Because it's not just going to make the game more fun to play. It's not just going to be like super exciting for casual players who don't really know what's going on. The real place that I think the real-time commentary feature is going to stand out the most is on places like Twitter. Now, if you've ever seen a clip of a fighting game video, you've often seen a tweet that says, "Oh my god, I can't believe he did that," right? And sometimes you'll look at the clip and you'll be like, did what? I don't actually understand why that was exciting. And this is the thing about high-level gameplay. Some of the stuff that happens up there doesn't really translate to the great masses of people that might even see that clip. Now, it seems like a bit of a waste in terms of content creation. If you're going to be putting a clip on the internet, seen by a lot of the biggest influencers in the game, and then for 95% of the people who see that clip to not actually understand what was so exciting about that moment. And so the biggest moment I think everyone can always use as an example is Evo moment 37. There's a moment that if it isn't actually explained to you, it just looks like someone doing a move in Street Fighter and then it's the end of the round and somebody wins. But when it's explained to you that that move was so hard to do and that up until that point, really no one had seen that sort of thing be done before and in that situation. Basically, it's always the context that matters. Not just in moments like that, but in fighting games in general. Commentary is so important to the game. Not just for people who've never seen a fighting game before, but even for people who know exactly what's going on in fighting games. It still really helps to have commentators because they know their stuff. Often, even if you play the game, you only really know about your character. So when you see a couple characters on screen and you've got commentators who know what they're talking about, and they're like, you know, at this spacing, Karen's sweep will hit, but her medium kick won't quite reach, and we don't have this move or that move on deck, and we don't have this much gauge, and we don't know what the options are specifically for each and every character. So commentators, because they do their studies so hard, and they actually know all the different options of all the different characters, and they work so hard to know this information, it really helps in esports matches when you're watching the streams to actually have the commentators explain why that was so exciting. And that's why it can be fun for anyone to watch a fighting game, even if they don't play the game, because the commentators explain what was so cool about it. And so in a previous video that I was making, maybe it was only a couple of weeks ago, I was talking about how we can make fighting games actually appeal to the masses, more people. And the example I used was when you go to the pub, you often see a soccer game on a TV in the corner, or a basketball game, or an American football game. You just see games on, and you can talk about it because it's like, oh man, that looks like that was pretty hard. It's a sport that we've played before, most of us in school, and even if we haven't played them before, we kind of know what's going on, and we can kind of understand what was exciting about it. But with a fighting game, because there are so many different fighting games, fighting games are not just one genre where everything's always the same. It's so specific. The characters are specific. The way that the walls break or don't break is specific. Whether the corner is actually a scary place to be or not is so specific. Is it a 2D game or a 3D game? There are so many varieties, and instead of boiling all fighting games down to the exact same style of game and making them all dumbed down and boring, which makes it not fun for the players, then what we can actually do to open fighting games up to more people is to just do better with communication. And so imagine if you're on Twitter and you see a clip and it's explained as well as those Hi Fight videos that you've seen. You know when Hi Fight does those, I think they're called first frame or frame one, and they're called like just frame analysis. And in those videos, the videos are slowed down at just the right points so you can see every frame, and there's a subtitle on the screen explaining to you what the move was and possibly what the player was thinking. How many frames of advantage? How many frames of disadvantage? What were the real options here? Did the character step back in order to adjust the spacing? Did they get themselves in just the right position and make sure that they had just enough gauge at just the right moment to make a comeback at the end of the round? And that's why it was exciting. All you need to do is watch one of those Hi Fight videos to realize that every clip on Twitter should be a clip like that. And what I'm arguing basically is that the real-time commentary feature basically does just that. All right, time for some of this Columbia Supremo. It had better be supreme tasting or I will be asking for my money back. Tastes like the wings of a sweaty falcon. So it might still be kind of hard to imagine just how much of an impact this is going to have, but this is actually kind of deep technology. You know, they need to know what the players are doing. They need to make sure that the commentary isn't annoying, because if it's just saying the exact same thing over and over and over again, like that can get a little bit tiresome. And if it's not actually adding anything to the game, then it's going to be annoying not just for the players, but also casual players and also people who don't even play fighting games. It's just like, oh, that's the game that always has that really annoying voiceover. So they have to be very, very careful. Now, I'm also aware that this is the feature that has been tried in other fighting games, but as far as I'm aware, it's not actually been tried to this level, to like this specific. Like, from what I've seen so far, the game is analyzing the exact distance between the characters in terms of pixels. They know what hitbox could hit and what hurtbox could get hit if the character is at this position with these specific characters. It may look like just something that was tacked on just to make the game a little bit more fun for casual players. It's like, oh yeah, I'm playing a match which is really exciting. I'm an esports player. But when you think about it, you'd have had to get commentators, players, developers. They would have had to get all of these people together and actually see if this is a feature that works and isn't just annoying. But if they can make it work, that means that every clip you export from Street Fighter 6, any clip, even if you played without commentary, you would be able to switch the commentary on afterwards so that when you export that clip and put it on Twitter, anyone who watches it will know exactly why what just happened was exciting. That person had no meter, but then they got into the corner and then they caused burnout on the other character and they got the big comeback. But it was a big gamble because if they had spent their meter and they hadn't got them into burnout, they'd have been burned out themselves, and then they would have taken that risk and they would have thrown it all away when maybe they should have played it a little bit safer. That's not the sort of thing you know if you don't play fighting games. That's not the sort of thing that you would know if you don't follow Street Fighter 6. Here's the bigger problem with fighting games. Even if you like Street Fighter, if you don't play Guilty Gear as well, then when you watch a Guilty Gear video clip, you'll be like, I don't really know if that was exciting because I don't really follow Guilty Gear. Listen, I play a lot of fighting games on this channel. Like, I've played Guilty Gear, I've played Street Fighter, I've played Tekken, I've played Dead or Alive, I've played Soul Calibur, I've played BlazBlue Cross Tag, I've played BlazBlue. I've played so many fighting games, and even though I've played so many of them, if you showed me footage from like a high-level match of a game that I don't play every day, I'd be like, but personally, this isn't the game that I play as my main game, so I can't really tell you whether that was really exciting or not. And that is like, then we're taking out like 99% of the people who play fighting games. It's like, wow, there probably really are a very small number of people who can tell you whether that was exciting or not. Or if it was clearly exciting just from the graphics on screen, why was it exciting? What we just saw, was that an Evo Moment 37, or was that just two beginners who didn't really know what they were doing and just pressing buttons kind of randomly? If it's done correctly, this could actually give us the context that we need in every clip forever, so that every clip is interesting. Every clip that you put on Twitter makes sense. Like 3,000 people that viewed it, it's not actually 3,000 people that understood it. Maybe there was only like 10 or 15 top players who saw that clip and went, yeah, I actually know what really happened there. If we have a real-time commentary feature which is built into the game, which is good enough to explain basically what was so exciting there, then it means that not just 15 out of the 3,000 people that watched, it means that the other basically 2,985 people who watched it will also now know that what just happened was an Evo Moment 37. What I'm trying to say is that with social media and fighting games, even if the game is awesome, and even if the influencers are working really hard, for some reason, it's not enough. We put all this content out there, and it still has trouble getting new people involved because there's so much knowledge required to understand what was exciting about fighting games in general. And if it's not your main fighting game, maybe you can't even explain to other people what was so exciting there, because every game is different. And that's good. We want them to stay that way. We don't want them all to be dumbed down and become auto combo games, because then they're not fun to play. And if the players don't find it interesting, then you're not going to get fun, exciting matches to show people. So it's like we got to take care of both. Got to take care of the players. They've got to actually enjoy the game enough that they want to play it to a high level. And we've got to take care of the people who want to watch this and enjoy it, but not necessarily get into the grind and actually get good at the game. If you can get people to enjoy fighting games on a level that doesn't even require them to play the game itself, that means you can take advantage of merchandise, you can take advantage of intellectual property, you can sell toys, you can sell t-shirts, you can sell mugs, you can sell the soundtracks, you can sell movies, you can sell all the stuff that all the other franchises basically enjoy, like Sonic. There's a Mario movie coming out. And that's no one's fault, really. It's just fighting games are fun because of what's happening not on screen. The mind games, the context, and that's why commentary is so important. I'm not here to tell you that the commentator's job is the most important thing in a fighting game, but I'm telling you that they are critical to getting more people interested in fighting games and turning this into a massive business, taking advantage of the potential of fighting games to become a massive profitable business, not just for the game's publisher, but also for people who are content creators and people who are influencers who want to turn this into their careers as well. Real-time commentary. This is the end of an era. You made this really amazing combo that was hard to do, but no one actually understands that it was hard to do in that context. And so you just have this video with some loud explosions in it, and maybe 15 people watched it, or 30 people watched it, or 1,000 people watched it. But we need to get to a point where it's like, yo, what just happened was Evo Moment 37 level, and if people could just be told why it was exciting, like, okay, he had no meter, but he took this risk, and that's why that was exciting. Not only will people just watch it more, who knows, maybe they'll even want to play fighting games as well and discover that it is actually a lot of fun and that it's not just a grind. It's like fighting games also have to get over the stigma of just being difficult. Yes, it's difficult, but actually everything's difficult. Playing a musical instrument is difficult. Playing Fortnite is difficult. Playing Apex Legends is difficult. Everything has a level of difficulty, but with fighting games, not only do they have the actual difficulties built into, getting good at them, the same way that getting good at any martial art is difficult, but they also have just the stigma. There's the social stigma of people always talking about how difficult it is. This is somewhat unrelated, but sometimes the phrase like, oh, your Japanese is really good, and let's say Nihongo o jouzu desu ne. This phrase is really funny because when they tell you that your Japanese is really great, it's also partly because they're really proud that Japanese is a hard language to learn. I'm not saying that everyone is thinking this, but there is that small nuance. It's like, whoa, even a foreigner of your stupidity level can manage to understand a language as difficult and magnificent as Japanese? Oh my goodness, you must be some kind of genius. Oh, jouzu desu ne. But I digress, and it's not all Japanese people who think that. I just think that's a funny take on why it's funny that Nihongo o jouzu desu ne is such a funny phrase. I think the last point I want to make is that not only is this real-time commentary audible, but it will also, of course, be available as subtitles. And one of the main things that has changed with the way that people consume media is we don't sit in front of the TV watching stuff now. We also watch it on tablets, we also watch them on our phones, and we also take our phones and tablets in public. So we're watching them on the train, we're watching videos on our phones while we're at school, we're watching videos on our phones while we're waiting in the queue, waiting to pay for our groceries. People are watching media and checking their social media everywhere, and not always do they have the ability to listen to the video. So they're just watching something silently. And because this feature is built in as subtitles as well, it means that people can actually understand the context of what's going on in these matches just by looking at the video. So even if it's silent and they don't watch with audio, they'll know what's going on. Capcom has very obviously decided that this is not just a war on making this fighting game successful as a fun fighting game. The war is on social media. Sorry, I'm saying it's a war. It's not a war. They're just declaring that this is the main strategy for them. Making sure that this game looks the part, making sure that young people who have never played fighting games before are going to be interested in the characters. Like, they're hip and they're stylish, and the videos are going to be on social media. People are going to understand why things are exciting. When they're playing the game, even if they're a casual player, the commentary is going to tell them what's going on. So maybe they'll even become better players just by listening to the commentary and understanding, okay, now I've got my opponent in an interesting situation where maybe I can take advantage of the fact that they're in the corner and I didn't really realize that was a good situation for me. Or now that they've fallen over, I've actually got the Oki. What is Oki? Now we can find out. Maybe real-time commentary can give us some sort of context and get casual players up to speed on what is high level in these fighting games. It's all very exciting. Listen, that's all I've got for you today. Just very excited because I think this is definitely the start of a new era of spreading fighting games in an extremely natural way that will just happen on its own. We won't need everyone to be high fight level in terms of knowledge and editing skill to make those just frame analysis videos. Every video ever uploaded for Street Fighter 6 until the end of time will become a just frame analysis. Obviously not to the same level and context of the high fight videos, but enough context that it definitely gets people more on board with what's going on in the video and why it's exciting, whether or not they play fighting games. So I think that's really exciting. But what do you think? Do you think that this feature is going to be as important as I say? Or do you think it's just an annoying thing that people are going to switch off and we're never going to hear about it again because it was a bit of a waste of time? Let me know by writing it down in the comments section below, because personally, I think that this could be a massive game changer. And even if it isn't a game changer this time, clearly this strategy is going to be an important part of spreading understanding about fighting games on a much orders of magnitude level bigger than anything we've had before, and not only relying on knowledgeable commentators, knowledgeable influencers. Though that is something else I want to talk about in a future video, just the way that they are making sure that they are aiming for influencers to help make sure that this game is a success, or at least has a successful launch. It's all very, very exciting. Now we've got a game feature that makes sure that every video exported from it is going to just explain itself. So we don't have to explain anything anymore. In fact, we don't even really need to know our stuff anymore because the game kind of understands it for us. Yes! If you liked what you saw, make sure that you subscribe to the channel. Click the like button. That helps massively. If you want to talk more about fighting games and coffee or anything Japan related, join us on the NihongoGamer Discord. We've also been doing art challenges lately every week, so be sure to join us if you want to do creative stuff as well. You can watch me playing fighting games on Twitch, so be sure to follow me over there. That's all for today. I'll see you in the next NihongoGamer video.